Kia ora, I'm Zoe George and welcome to Fair Play, a podcast covering women in sport from athletes and results to current affairs and issues. This is the third episode of Fair Play and you can find all the shows on rnz.co.nz and wispsports.com. There you can also find a range of other fantastic shows from around the world and various sports, bringing you the latest in news from women's sport. You can also follow us on social media at WiSP Sports and at producer_Zoe. This month, we celebrate success with three incredible women. Shortly, we'll hear from Samara Pepperell, aka Lady Trample, who has been in the States competing in the roller derby World Champs, where she was named MVP. We talk about encouraging other women to lace up their skates. Then we pump some iron with Alethea Boon, who'll be representing New Zealand at the Commonwealth Games next year for the third time. But it's the first time in weightlifting. But meet our first guest and today's co-host, para climber Rachael Carter. Her story is an inspirational one. When she was a teenager, an awkward fall changed the course of her life. She broke one ankle and shattered the other. She was wheelchair bound and had to learn how to walk again. It's been a difficult road for Rachael. She's faced so many challenges, medically, physically, psychologically. Her left leg is permanently damaged and she requires a crutch to walk. She was told that she was, quote, a cripple, and she started to believe it. But things started to change 3 years ago, and now she's scaling walls all around the country. Kia ora, Rachael.
Hi, Zoe.
You were in sixth form, weren't you, when you had this fall?
Yeah, I was 16.
And what happened?
So I was competing for my high school, in Invercargill School, and we rocked up to Christchurch Secondary School Champs. Had a great score going into the finals the next day. Everybody was very amped, very excited, but I blew an ankle out and broke the other in a training run the evening before. So I took a controlled fall, I had a spotter, I did everything right, but landed very awkwardly on a small little patch where the landing surface had been repaired, and that was enough to cause some pretty significant damage.
So what damage was done to your ankles?
So one was a fairly minor break, but needed plastered because obviously it would be supporting all my weight whilst the other recovered. The left ankle unfortunately suffered shearing off of the cartilage. Some of the bone just disintegrated and had to be replaced by a little piece out of my hip. And then multiple bolts and screws and bits and pieces to put it back together again, and a very long rehab to learn how to walk all over.
So, Rachael, tell me about your experience in high school following your injury.
I guess as many people experience, you can find yourself being given labels that you didn't choose for yourself. So for me, that started in high school and it continued as an adult. And that was, the harmless comments like, oh, cripple or invalid, things like that. But I picked that up and wore that subconsciously sort of as my favourite outfit for many, many years. And there became a defining point where I had to decide that's not going to be my favourite outfit anymore. I get to choose the life that I have and the attitude I have to it. A lie is a lie, even if everyone believes it. The truth is the truth, even if no one believes it. So I had to decide what I believed about myself.
What the truth really was.
Absolutely, and my climbing's really helped with that.
Yeah, it's incredible watching you climb.
Oh, thank you.
It's amazing.
It's incredible doing it. It feels amazing, and it's nice to celebrate that.
You went through numerous surgeries, didn't you?
Yes. Yep.
And you were saying you had a piece taken from your hip.
I had a piece taken out of my hip, and incidentally, you wouldn't think that your hip was needed to sneeze, but I'd tell you, sneezing after surgery, that hurt more than the major reconstruction of the ankle itself. It was a bit messed up. And then I went on to have multiple debridement ops over the next few years. So that involves just a quick look back in the joint, taking out scrappy bits of cartilage that are falling off, taking out little bits of bone that are growing in the wrong place and trying to alleviate the pain that way. And that held me for some time. And then eventually that wasn't enough either, and I was in a spot of trouble.
What happened then?
I was offered an experimental op, which is gaining some traction in other countries. But in New Zealand, I believe I was number 5 to have this surgery.
Wow.
I might have been the second patient for my particular surgeon, and he didn't have great success with the patient before me. So I knew going into that surgery it may not be successful, but it was a chance that I wanted to take. And so that involved having a traction frame, so an X-fit frame attached through and in and out of your leg, and it sort of hung externally off my foot for 4 months, and I was required to tinker away with it with a pair of spanners and slowly stretch my ankle apart.
Wow. And has it worked? Is it...
Yeah, I've grown some cartilage out of a joint that had nothing left to it, and I have some joint space where previously there was none. So it has been successful to the point that I can walk with one crutch. And to me, that's a win, because I did nearly 2 years on 2 crutches, and that was a bit challenging. I mean, it had its humorous moments. I had 4-year-olds who would see this crazy as frame on my leg, and you'd see their eyes just following you at the football field, and they'd be tugging on Mummy's sleeve going, Mummy, look, that lady's a transformer.
You're like, yes, I am.
Like, yes, I am. We celebrated the funny side of it, but definitely it had its challenges and its moments.
I can only imagine. We're talking to paraclimber and today's co-host, Rachael Carter. When did you get back into climbing, and did you struggle to get back proverbially on the horse?
I took up climbing really only this year again, and not regularly until about probably June. I was aware there were some national competitions coming up and that New Zealand would be offering for the first time a paraclimbing category, and I think that just motivated me a little bit to go, I'm going to compete in that category. I'd had probably a 16-year break from climbing.
Wow.
And I didn't have a good mentality about what I was capable of and what I could do. So climbing for me became, I guess, quite therapeutic, and it was a way to acknowledge, yep, things are different now. I'm going to have to relearn to do this completely differently. It's not the same, but I can do it.
Because before the accident, you used both legs, both arms, and now you still have both of your legs, but you only have movement in one of your legs, don't you?
I can move the leg and I can counterbalance with it, so I could position it out from the wall just to give a bit of balance. But there's no strength in there, and pain-wise, I cannot weight bear on that foot on the wall. So I will use my knee a little, but largely I'm two arms, one leg.
Also, it's modified climbing, right? So the rope comes from above instead of below like normal climbers. How does that work?
In a competitive setting, usually you would lead climb, which means you're taking the rope up with you and clicking it in as you go. That carries some significant risk for climbers like myself, who are very protective of an injured limb. So we top rope, and that gives us that safety net that if we fall, we're not going to have a massive tumble that could give quite an impact against the wall when we land it. There's no tension in that rope. We're doing the work ourselves, but it's just a safety net. And that's been cool because it's given me the opportunity to try some stuff that I wouldn't lead. I wouldn't take that risk.
Was there ever a point where you were standing at the bottom of the wall about to climb up it and go, actually, I can't do this?
Every time, Zoe, it still gets to me. And I, in particular, that first climb up at Nationals in August, I had not climbed at that level before. And so there was this moment where I realised I'm doing more now with 1.5 quote unquote legs than I ever did with 2 good legs. And it felt a whole lot more overwhelming than I thought it would. I might have choked a little on that first climb, but it was really empowering. And I think, every time I go towards the wall, I'm definitely thinking, oh my gosh, I can't do this. And I often get halfway up a wall and I'm thinking, I can't do this. But I surprise myself. And I think that's a good thing. They're healthy surprises. And you have to start looking back at that pattern and going, oh, I always think I can't. But actually then I do. And then you can apply that to everything in life. Life is a bit of a climb. And often we think we can't. But actually we can. It just means you have to kick off those labels first that tell you can't, and pick up some decent ones which reaffirm that you're able, that you can.
That you can do it.
Absolutely.
We, I think, should put a couple of videos of you up on the website because I've seen you climb and you're like a spider monkey.
A spider monkey, yeah, maybe.
No, it's incredible, Rachael. It really is to watch.
Thank you.
And it's very empowering, and I hope that other athletes or people who have a disability can watch it and draw inspiration from that.
Yeah, I hope they do.
Now, before we move on and talk to our next guest, we went out recently and watched the Rugby League World Cup final together at our local pub, which was lots of fun.
With a few locals.
Yeah, with a few locals. The Kiwi Ferns lost, but I think they played so well. But one of the Australian players, fullback Nakia Davis-Welsh, injured her ankle, and the look on your face, Rachael, it just... Did all these memories just start flooding back?
Yeah. I'm not going to cry. I think it's different when you've fought through, sleepless nights, no sleep because of pain, you running out of options with an injury. And so to see someone who's clearly at the top of her game and competing professionally to take an injury like that, I don't see just, oh my gosh, she's hurt, she's in pain. I can see hours of physio, and I see, I guess, the psychology of that and what that could or couldn't do for her career as a sportswoman. And that, I think that hit me, and you could see her ankle go. It just, it was awful.
It was horrible to watch. Now, you saw a pain psychologist.
I did, yes. I used to have a very lineal approach to pain. So pain is pain, it's localised, it's mechanical. And I didn't really understand the holistic approach to pain management that I now have. So I learned through seeing a pain psychologist that we can manage our pain really well when we manage other stresses in our life and make really healthy choices in other areas of our life. And that's something I've learned to do. And I've discovered that my climbing really is my best pain relief. I don't take too many medications anymore. I had a moment where my 7-year-old asked me, "Mum, you don't really like food, do you? You just take pills and drink coffee."
Wow.
And I think that shook me. I realised that that's probably all he saw. And for a period that was appropriate, I did need quite a high level of pain medication. But after a time, I've learnt that when I manage everything else in my life well, and when I do more of what I love, it really is the best pain relief. And I've had that sort of validated by different specialists involved in my care as well. So that's a positive outcome from climbing.
Something else that I noticed last night when we were watching the Rugby League World Cup final was that we were actually the only women sitting outside watching the game, and we were surrounded by a whole bunch of men watching it, and they were cheering on the Kiwi fans. What were your thoughts about that?
I thought that was quite neat. Yeah, it was fantastic to see that the sport was there, that the men were engaging in it.
What I also found really interesting, that it was a huge payday for the men. Even though the New Zealand men's team got knocked out in the quarterfinals, they still collected 33,000 Australian dollars each, and from the NZRL, and they also took home a daily allowance of $120, and they split $35,000 between the team as losing the quarterfinals. The Australian men who retained their title got $50,000 each for winning. The women, well, I tried calling NZRL to try and figure out how much they received, but the last time we spoke to them, all they received is an allowance, and I hope that there is a full review into their amount of money, their prize money as well, and their daily allowances. $120 for men though, and then $35,000.
It's a lot.
It's a lot of money. That's match fees. I don't know. Where do we start with this?
I think we start with believing in ourselves as individuals, and again, it comes down to labels that we wear and what we're choosing to think about ourselves. Other people start believing that as well, or vice versa. So, yeah, maybe it starts with each person rather than a whole collective.
So let's get our skates on for the next interview. Samara Pepperell is known as Lady Trample in roller derby circles. She's just been to the States to compete in the Women's Flat Track Roller Derby Championship. The final, which her team, the Victorian Roller Derby League, won, was broadcast on ESPN2. She's a jammer, someone who scores points by lapping members of the opposition. The Kiwi's been rolling around the rink since 2012 and loves it so much that she set up Chicks in Bowls, an organisation that supports female quad skaters. Kia ora, Samara, or do you prefer Lady Trample?
Happy to go by either. Hi.
It's a great name. Where did it come from?
I grew up loving the movie Lady and the Tramp, and I love the song Lady is a Tramp, and my skating style very much involves, I guess, a supposedly graceful style that inevitably ends up with me trampling people.
Well, I guess your role as a jammer is to avoid getting trampled, isn't it?
Yes, exactly.
Is roller derby a serious sport?
Yes, it absolutely is. It has come from a very unique background where it kind of used to be a little bit more theatric and recreational, but the version that we play of it these days, especially within the women's flat track division, is highly competitive, and we basically train 4 days a week. Some of us have diets, but we do off-skates training. We are athletes that play a competitive sport.
So you started doing roller derby in Auckland, and now you're based out of Melbourne. What is the difference between roller derby in Australia and New Zealand? What's the levels like?
Roller derby all over the world actually has some really high-playing teams, but I had the opportunity to come and join the Victorian Roller Derby League in Melbourne, who at the time when I joined them were currently ranked 4th in the world. So the team that I was playing with in New Zealand at the time was ranked around about the 100 mark. And so it's quite a big step up to go from where I was with them to then switching to play with the RDL. We managed to go to the playoffs that year and came third. That the first year that I was with them, and then this year we took it off and managed to take out the championship. So,
and you also won MVP. That's fantastic.
Thank you. It's a huge honour.
I understand that you took a third at some point and you've come back to come first, which is really exciting and well done. I just wondered what that did for your focus and mentality to go into your next round having come third. Did that give you an edge going in, do you think, or did it make you want it more?
It absolutely made us want it more. I mean, getting so close, getting to that the semi-final games and then to only lose by such a small amount really gave us a lot to reflect upon. We came back and we did a really critical analysis of the team and of our strengths and weaknesses, basically did a whole SWOT of the team and our training and set really high goals for the next season. We already trained really hard the previous season and we amped it up even more, but we had a lot of self-reflection individually and then as a team on what we needed to change and how we needed to innovate our strategy to basically take it out the next year.
Yeah, it can be a motivating factor, isn't it? And when you get so close. You're like, for you, Rachel, it's like a fingertip, isn't it?
It was a half point, yeah. So it was upward motion versus no motion. So the second place getter had the same number of holds as me, but she had slightly more upward motion towards the next hold than I did. And after going to a second judge, it was given to her, but she totally deserved it. She worked really hard for that. And yeah, I full respect for the other competitors.
Today, our guests are paraclimber Rachael Carter, and we're also talking to Lady Trample, Samara Pepperell, who has just won the MVP at the roller derby champs over in the States. Samara, a lot of the time when we see roller derby, we see women in fishnet stockings and short shorts and shoulder pads. And is that actually what it's all about?
That is an accurate representation of where the sport started or was reborn, out of what we want, depending on the role we play and our skating style. We do wear protective gear, so we have wrist guards and elbows and knee pads and helmets because it is a full contact sport at speed on roller skates. But our uniforms is probably the thing that has developed the most, and there's still a lot of creative aesthetics to it and aspects to it, but it is very much now designed for high performance, for speed and for durability. We're no longer wearing, for the most part, the sort of the tutus and the fishnets that you see, and there are still teams and skaters that do that for their own choice, and you can still express your own style within that.
Now, you also founded Chicks and Bowls. What is Chicks and Bowls?
Chicks and Bowls is a company that I run, but it's also a community. So we have designed a line of products that turn your average set of roller skates into park skates so that you can go and take them into the skate park and use them basically like a skateboard. You can slide and grind and carve. But we also have these communities. So we have these, we call them chapters that associate with us, and they are spread all around the globe. So there are 268 of them at the moment, and each chapter is made up of a skater or a group of skaters that want to spread the stroke of this crazy sport. And so they host meetups and sessions where the local skaters can come out and learn together and basically create a really safe and fun learning environment for girls in skate parks.
What about trans women in your sport? Is that something that it's a topic we'll be talking about later on in this podcast? But trans women in roller derby, is that something that happens?
Yes, it absolutely is. So roller derby is really unique in that we have a really open policy in terms of how you identify, and the identities that we welcome are very, very open to different, as non-binary or as trans, then you are welcome within the league, and we represent you how you want to be represented. So we have a lot of skaters that go by they, and that's something that you can actually, like when you go and play at a high-level tournament, you actually advise the announcers in advance of your preferred pronouns so that they can be referred to in a way that makes you feel comfortable and represents you the way that you wish to be represented.
Samara, I'm just have a question here, wondering in a minority sport, did you have years where you felt like you weren't getting the competitive opportunities that you would like because of the development and the size of the sport that you're involved in? And what do you think helped to, give your sport some traction and some more exposure?
That's a really interesting question at the moment, because roller derby is in this weird sort of growing pain of, when it first started, it was niche and different, and it was a little bit punk and underground, and so when people first heard of it, they were really excited, and we were able to draw these big crowds to the games because the sport was also kind of sexualized in ways, and so there was this element of the fishnets and the women playing sport hitting each other on roller skates, and I think that drew a lot of popularity to it. And since the sport has become more competitive and there is more of an athletic, strategic element to it, that has kind of changed the way that the generic public fan base interacts with it or perceives it. So we're kind of trying to rewrite how roller derby should be seen and what we should be seen as athletes. We take it very seriously. We train, like I said, up to 4 days a week on skates, and a lot of us do other things to enhance ourselves as athletes and as a team as athletes and competitors. And we really want to try and shake the mold of being seen as those, the girls wearing fishnets, grappling each other on the ground, or fist fights. It's a hard image to kind of shake and break away from. I think there are some really awesome things that are changing, and for us to be on, ESPN2 was a huge achievement for the sport, and I really hope that more opportunities like that continue to come for us.
That was Samara Pepperell, also known as Lady Trample, known in roller derby circles. I love that name. It's fantastic.
Great.
I don't know what my roller derby name would be.
No, but I love the roots that she had from it, like where it comes from.
It was fantastic. Now, before we move on, we touch very, very briefly on trans rights and access to sport. As you might be aware, women's weightlifting has been a hot topic following the announcement of the New Zealand Commonwealth Games, and for the first time ever, New Zealand is sending a transgendered woman to represent us on the world stage. Laurel Hubbard has been competing at the World Champs this week and is the first transgender weightlifter to do so. Trans rights and trans access in sport is fascinating, and it's not a subject that actually has been researched a lot in New Zealand.
No, look, I think that it's not a subject we think about often either as individuals. And to be honest, it's not something I've given much consideration because I don't have, that experience with people who are going through those challenges. So we're often only as aware as the experiences around us enable us to be.
I guess having a disability too, though, it's almost the same thing for you. You are a minority, and sometimes sports don't cater for you.
Yeah, I think one, it will depend on the sport that you're involved in. So as with roller derby and climbing, they are minority sports to start with. And then secondly, competing as a paraclimber, you're also a minority group. So
within a minority
sport, exactly. So there's good things to come in developing that, but we are certainly a bit behind Europe in that. I think the similarities between trans issues and para issues are that I think we want to compete as the person that we see ourselves as, and we want to have the same opportunities as other people. So I don't see myself specifically as disabled. I see myself as a climber, and I'm capable to compete as a climber. And so that's what I want to be doing and focusing on. And I want to be up there and involved with other climbers and learning from them, not missing out on opportunities. So that's difficult when it is a small sport and a small group.
Well, let's stick with small sports, if you can call it that, minority sports, weightlifting, and we're talking to Alethea Boon. She'll be at the Com Games alongside Hubbard representing New Zealand. She first represented New Zealand in gymnastics in 1998 and in 2002, and went to the 2000 Sydney Olympics. She's also a keen competitive CrossFitter, and is currently ranked second in Australia. Alethea is also active on Instagram, with more than 67,000 followers. Kia ora, Alethea.
Hi, nice to see you.
Congratulations on your inclusion to the Com Games once again. Gymnastics to weightlifting. How did that happen?
Crazy, actually. Just had a bit of a void and wanted to find something to stay fit, and I actually found CrossFit. And then through CrossFit, I found out that I was actually really bad at weightlifting. I wasn't very strong, and I thought, this is something that I could actually just try to get better at for the sake of getting better at it. And I just ended up throwing myself into a competition, and it just grew from there.
Are there any similarities between gymnastics and weightlifting?
Absolutely. I think the thing that got me hooked on weightlifting is that you have to be millimetre perfect in order to execute a good lift. And, with gymnastics, that 4-inch beam, you have to be millimetre perfect, otherwise you're going to fall. So the similarities of having to be so technically proficient definitely got me hooked, and I wanted to learn more, do more, and just get better at it.
What's the difference between weightlifting and competitive CrossFit?
With weightlifting, you get up, you get 3 attempts at a snatch and 3 attempts at a clean and jerk. So your lifts need to count. Every lift you do needs to count. Whereas CrossFit is a bit of weightlifting, gymnastics, running, swimming, all different fitness modalities. And there's a bigger margin for error, so you can actually race through a workout and make a mistake but still do okay. Whereas with weightlifting, all your lifts need to count. So you just need to be a bit more on point with weightlifting.
You recently had an Achilles tear, is that right?
I did, yeah. It was actually at the CrossFit Games in 2016 on the big stage. I was jumping over a box and I just felt a major pop. I looked down and I couldn't really walk, so my Achilles had completely ruptured.
Alethea, after your injury, did you find that sort of shook your confidence a little bit as to how far you could push your body? And what were the strategies that you used to move past that?
Yeah, I definitely didn't know just how I could actually come back. Recovering from surgery and coming back, it was literally having to set really small milestone goals. So it was definitely stretching the Achilles was the first thing. The first time I could put my foot against the wall and then touch my knee to the wall, that was the biggest. That small win progressed into little things like being able to walk and toe off. And then once that happened, I was able to just look for the next small goal. It was very important to me to celebrate each and every little milestone because that big picture just seemed too far away.
It feels quite unrealistic at different points, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It seems so hard to get there, but the small wins definitely help make that bigger picture seem like it's more realistic.
Yeah, taking the small wins, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. You have to learn to be proud of yourself for those wins.
Your road to the Com Games, you first went in the late 90s. You must have been, you were just a teenager, weren't you?
I was 14 years old.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. I was a bit of a deer in the headlights. I don't think I fully comprehended what a big deal it was to make it.
Yeah, and then a couple of years later you were in the reserves for the Olympics, but you ended up going?
I was just an alternate, so I ended up coming over to watch anyway.
Something that I found really fascinating is that you have a tape ball. Is that right?
Yes, I do. It's so disgusting, but it's definitely, it's a visual tool for me to just realise that, on all the hard days, even if it's a rough day, I just put some tape on the tape ball and I know that I'm getting that one step closer to my goal.
So all the tape that you use, you take off and then you put in the ball?
I do. It's so disgusting.
Awesome. I love it.
But it's a visual tool, it's a visual reminder just to know that no matter how crappy things might be in the process, it's still a process and you'll get there in the end.
Before I let you go, Alethea, there's been a lot of discussion of late about the Com Games team that's going particularly around the inclusion of the first transgendered woman to the team. What's your point of view on this?
I don't really have a point of view. I just think Laurel is part of our team and regardless, we support her 100%.
And that's the way it should be, right? We should support all women in sport.
Absolutely.
And what's the realistic goal for you at Com Games?
I haven't quite set a result goal as yet. I'm all about just trying to put the best version of yourself out there.
Fantastic. Well, we wish you all the very best. I cannot wait to watch you at the Com Games. It's going to be spectacular.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much. Alethea Boon, women's weightlifter for New Zealand at the Commonwealth Games. We wish you all the very best. Rachel, it's been an absolute pleasure having you in the studio. You
Thanks for having me.
An inspiration. What are you going to be doing over summer?
I'm going to be probably reducing the calorie and cider intake and being a little more careful. We've got competitions in May by the looks of it coming up. New Zealand will be including paraclimbing in 2 of their national rounds this coming season.
Brilliant.
So I'll be focusing on that.
And that's it for this episode of Fair Play. You can find more on wispsports.com and don't forget to like, follow, share us on Facebook and Twitter at WiSP Sports. We'd love to hear from you. You can also listen to some of the other fantastic podcasts coming from top sports journalists and athletes from around the world, covering every sport imaginable from sailing to horse riding. Thank you to executive producer Chris Stafford, co-presenter, paraclimber Rachael Carter. Fabulous. I'm going to have you back.
Thank you.
I'm Zoe George. Thanks again. And don't forget to play hard, but play fair.